blood donation has started. Those of you interested in donating a few units can please step out. There's Sabanayagam outside. He'll guide you. Any interested people walking up? It's time to welcome our second speaker on stage. How many of you have heard of India Hikes? Okay. The rest of you will get to know today. Our next speaker, his name is Arjun. He started trekking at the age of 8, mostly by himself. Later, as he grew up, he started taking his friends along on treks. Over a period of time, he encountered a lot of problems trekking in India. And after discussing with his friends, he decided to start IndiaHikes.com. They wanted to solve the problems faced by trekkers in our country together. In his talk, Arjun is going to take us through the journey of India Hikes, how it started, how they set out to solve the problems faced by mountain climbers. He'll also talk about the future of trekking in our country. Just a side note, India Hikes organized the Peak Back Challenge in 2012. Those of you who are ardent CTC fans at that point in time will know that 3 of our teams from Chennai Trekking Club took the first 3 places in the Chemra Peak Challenge. And that's how we came to know about India Hikes as such. Until then, we were all CTC most of the time. So we have a personal connection with India Hikes, and ever since we've been following their page vigorously. Please put your hands together for Arjun from India Hikes.
Good morning everyone, I'm Arjun from India Hikes, and I'm absolutely not used to speaking in front of a mic, and with the mic I'm more comfortable with my hands, and you know, guys from the hills, you cannot expect them to be speaking with the mic. But anyway, I'll take you through this little journey of ours. Now, everybody wonders where we work, where's our office, and you know, what do we do. So I would like to show you where our, you know, the way to our office where we work. So if you can just show people where we work. This is our way to our office. So this is where we work, and everybody is very surprised. Is it possible that people can work in this kind of a setting? Don't you need 4 cubicles, and don't you need computers to work? Actually, no, this is where we really work. And you wouldn't believe that we actually sit down on this grass to have a meeting. And I'll show you on the way, you know, what we get on the way to our office, if you can show people that. You know, this is the kind of settings we get on the way to our office. This thing, and this is a very common kind of setting. For those who are a little curious, this is in Kashmir, you know. This is Kashmir, this is India, and people wonder if this kind of settings can be in India. If you look the previous slide, the one which you showed, the one before that, this is also in India. This is my place called Alibugya. This is in Uttarakhand, and this is at 11,000 feet. But what not many people know is that this is India's highest high altitude meadows. It's so big and it's so large, it takes 2 days to cover it. And it's always like this, it's a carpet. It just goes on undulating all across, all as far as your eyes can see. And I did notice there are some CTC photos of the same place. I was watching that, but that was taken from a different season. So now, while these are the fun things that we do, and we do have these things, I know none of you take this too seriously. What India Hikes basically do, or what when we started India Hikes and we still do, is that we want to solve the problems of the trekking world. That's how it started. Now, when I started trekking, now I'm talking about many years back, I'm talking about early 90s, I'm talking about 80s, I'm talking about those times when I used to trek. Things are not so organized as it is today. Nowadays you get terrific equipment, all kinds of information is available online. But when I started trekking, none of these things were available. So there were a lot of problems, and from that problem solving attitude that we had, and that we wanted to solve the problems of the mountain world, germinated India Hikes. And today India Hikes is the largest trekking organization in the country. Now, close to about 7,000 people trek with us every year, and I'm not talking about in the south, but I'm talking about in the Himalayas where people are trekking. Even as I'm speaking with you, our teams are trekking across in the mountains, even in winter, which again was not done many years previously. And we have about 45,000 registered members with us. So, and this number is continuously growing every not commercial reasons, but because we want to solve problems of the mountain world. And how do we solve it? Now, this is what I wanted to speak to you all about, is that how problem solving can not only help the community, it also helps in growing an organization. This is what we have learned with our experience, and this is what I wanted to share with you all today. When I first started trekking, I didn't know where to trek. There were one or two options. I could trek with youth hostel, you must have heard of it. I could trek with youth hostel, they had a few treks, but outside that, what do I do? Where do I trek? If I wanted to trek in the Himalayas, where do I go? There was no option. So what we would do is friends together, we would collect information from people who have been on certain trails, ask them, read about it in some stray article in some magazine perhaps, and in India, you know, these kind of magazines don't exist. Now, I'm a Bengali by birth, and you know, Bengalis are good travelers, so Bengal has a culture of writing travel magazines, which is again sadly not there in most culture even now. So from there pick up one or two articles about some known places and then contact people over there, and you know how we used to write Indian letters which would go in 2 months and then reply will come back after 2 months. Sir, aapne, so please call us. Now the thing is, when you call them, you know he's not going to be there. So you know, setting up this appointment, so setting up a trek would take a very, very long time. And then once you set up a trek, you land up there to find this person is not there at all. He is vanished from the situation, and uska chacha ye bhatija koi hai jo lekar jayega aapko. And then you are in flummox because you are trying to do a very difficult trek, or you are doing a pass crossing and you want to know where you are going. So this was the kind of situation that we faced when we were young. The next big problem was, you know, equipment is not like the first class equipment that you get nowadays. Nowadays you get nylon tents, you know, high-tech gears. You go back, you've gone too early. So, you know, you get this kind of equipment and things like that. But at that time we had canvas tents. We used to use blankets as sleeping bags because we didn't have imported sleeping bags. So these are the kind of problems we have gone through. We would wear canvas shoes and trek on snow because we had no better shoes like how we get them now. So out of these, whenever we used to trek across the country, we used to see a lot of problems that existed. Trekking in Sikkim was very different from trekking in Himachal. Trekking in Uttarakhand was very difficult, you know, very different from trekking in say, Ladakh or any other places. And these problems, there were a lot of inconsistencies across the country when we are talking about trek. But the biggest problem that we noticed was there was no information. If I wanted to trek, where do I go? Where do I trek? Who will take me there? How much will it cost? How do I get to the base camp? Where do I make camps? All these were this thing. Where do I eat? How do I survive? How cold is it going to get? These were very straightforward questions which exist even with Google in 2015. Even as I am speaking with you, this is a very big problem with trekking in a country. One of the reasons why in our country trekking is not a very large scale followed sport is because the information is low. So to solve this problem, what we started doing was we started this is much before India Hike started, where and internet was just coming into our country. Internet was in its infancy, so at that time I do not know whether many of you have heard of it. There was a social media called Orkut, you know. So I used to go there and start posting my concerns that look, there is information shortage, so why don't you come together, let's put it together, and let's bring this out to the public. Now a lot of people by instinct, by heart, understood that this was a problem, and they were very enthusiastic about it. That look, yes, we must contribute our pooled knowledge. Let's put it together. Let's give it out to people, and then people can go ahead and use this information to trek. Now that's what I started doing. I started collecting information from people, and I would tell them that, look, why don't we, on this Saturday, if you can put together your information and I'll put it together and we'll put it up even in this social media called Output, and then everybody can use it. And everybody was so enthusiastic, yes, let's do it this Saturday. You're going to get my small 2-piece on this trek, and then X person can give on that, and the Y person can give on some other trek, and then Saturday would come and no information would come through. This happened Saturday after Saturday after Saturday. And then I realized that it's not because people don't want to contribute. Then I started digging into it. Then I realized that there's time is the issue, but the biggest issue is how do I contribute? There's no format to contribute. This Wikipedia model that I was thinking is not going to work, or was not working with people trying to contribute. Little bit stray lines, 3-4 lines which are not very practically useful would come through. And then at that time I realized that if in our country if you wanted to bring out trek information, then it has to come out in a certain way, a certain pattern, a certain format. Otherwise it would not be useful, because trekking is not like other things. It needs a very detailed information with pictures, with detailed directions on what to do and what not to do next. So by then I was pretty active in those of you who have been following me on my post very early on, maybe 7-8 years back, would have noticed me very active on the online forums. At that time, our country had by then woken up to the internet world, and they were looking at information from the internet world. That's when CTC also started, 2008. So we are almost very parallel to these kind of events that we started doing. So around very early, I forget the year, maybe 2005, 2006, I went on a trek to a place called Rupanda Photo, which I showed you on the way to our office. And I came back and I wrote about it on a blog. But that blog was designed in such a way that it represented what we wanted the information to be laid out as. There needs to be a good picture, there needs to be whom to contact, where to go, how to get there. Everything needs to be there in the blog, so that if somebody reads that blog, he or she can take a print of that blog and then go on the trek themselves. Ideally, no one in our country must need organizations like India Hikes to take them on treks. They must be able to do the trek on their own, like how CTC members tend to do the treks on their own. When I got the blog out in the public, it became an instant internet sensation. People started using that blog. I started getting mails saying that, oh, this is superb, how I want to go there, what do I do, how do I get there. A lot of follow-up emails would come. But this blog, though it became an internet sensation, it had some lovely byproducts which I had not anticipated. Now this byproduct was that I started getting a lot of phone calls from the people of the hills over there, the local people. And they would ask me, sir, आपने क्या किया? मैं बोला मैंने कुछ नहीं किया. तो बोलते नहीं आपने क्या किया, क्योंकि हमारे तकदीर अभी बदल. 1-2 जन को ले जाते थे पहाड़ों में. Now we get n number of phone calls. All of them say they have got it from you. They've got the number from you, and now I'm saddled with lots of work, and my life has changed. My kids were studying in government school, I put them in private school. Now that's a tremendous thing for people in the mountains, that if a mountain guy can put their kids in a private school. Now, I had followed up with this person later on, and I said, why did you put your kids in a private school? He says, in a private school, I can ask the teachers what they're doing. Imagine, in the mountains. Far away in the mountains, there's a sense of accountability that I can ask and get accountability from my teachers. So now that was a huge thing. So it was very easy to put these two together, that when you bring in credible information, everybody benefits. The society benefits, the locals benefits, everybody benefits. And the trekkers benefit because the credible information is helping them to do something which they want to do. So it's the putting together of credible information which is very, very important, where it must not have any commercial intent behind it. So, because that was already playing in my mind, and I had written about this blog, so that's when you can say that formally we started India Hikes. Is where we started India Hikes for a very simple reason, is that put together and solve these problems of the mountains. And we started solving. The first problem is bring out information about the trekking world. So this is what we do basically at India Hikes. Though we are India's largest, but the primary thing is if you ever come to our office, you'll find a team of content people. We'll find a lot of people working on bringing out information, and all of them are credible information. None of them have any commercial intent attached to it. Now, today at India Hikes, you have the largest curated trekking information about trekking in India. So if you ever go to our website indiahikes.in, and if you want to go on treks, even southern treks, you'll find a lot of information which you can just make a PDF out of and go and do that trek on your own. So this is problem solving, and very frankly, we have only that's the tip of the iceberg. Maybe about 100 or so treks are curated there. And we know for sure that even in Himalayas alone, there are about 300-400 treks that we can talk about. In South, we have hardly touched Tamil Nadu. There are some treks in Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh. There are treks in all the 29 states of our country. But if I were to ask you, I want to go on a trek to Madhya Pradesh, you will be absolutely bombed. You will not be able to give that answer. But what is stopping you from trekking in Madhya Pradesh? What is stopping you from trekking in the northeastern states? What is stopping you from trekking in, say, some place like Chhattisgarh? So there are treks across these places. Himalayas is, of course, a very grand place, and that's a bread and butter, but trekking across the country needs to be possible. School and college kids need to trek on their own, maybe through their own schools and colleges, and only then trekking in our country will take off. Otherwise, it will never ever take off. That's why organizations like Chennai Trekking Club is playing such a big role. Unfortunately, Chennai Trekking Club exists only in Chennai. I wish it had existed in the rest of the country in small modules and small pockets, and maybe you can ask Peter to repeat this in other states of our country, because this is very much required for the country. Now, solving problems of the mountain world is such a big challenge. Now, information is just one of the problems that we are solving. Now, there are n number of problems that we want to solve, and whenever we have solved a problem, we have realized that it has given immense benefits to people. Now, one of the things that India Hikes does is we explore treks. We explore. Now, you will wonder that exploration, matlab, are you talking about Shikhari Sambu, you wear a hat and you go out and explore, and you photograph, you write about these kind of places. Actually, it is true. There are n number of trails that we have gone to where people have never been to. We have explored them, brought it out for people to walk through. And these are the kind of trails that even last year we were bringing. None of these trails are new. They have been used by shepherds for centuries. They have been going through, but trekkers, some other two trekkers have come, but only when we talk about it, that when people write about it. This is Buran Ghati in Himachal Pradesh. Last year we had been there. Now, some of you may have heard of Buran Ghati, many of may not have heard of it, but if you look at it, you want to go there, isn't it? These are the kind of setting that we have in our country, and these are absolutely divine trails to trek on, walk on. Nobody goes there. If you go there, you will never see a soul except some cows and sheep. That's it. For 6-7 days, that's what you're going to see. Nothing more than that. But the trails are so amazing and so good. So when we go out and we feel like we are walking on this trail, we feel truly like explorers, and for the first time we're bringing this out to people. And when we bring these trails out to people, things change. Absolutely things change. Trekking in our country changes forever. There are a lot of pros and cons about these kind of things. A lot of people tell me that, look, when you bring out trails like this, it kind of destroys this place. People start going there in 50s and hundreds of what do you do? Now, we have this lot of internal debates within ourselves, but if you don't bring out these trails to the country, then this will forever stay buried and people will never be able to trek, and you will be confined to seeing Delhi, Agra, Jaipur and all these places. Unless you see the real country, what we have, and in a very conscious, eco-friendly manner, you will not be able to take the full benefit of what our country has to show you. And this is what our country has to show you. A few years back in Kashmir, you must have heard of Kashmir. So whoever sees Kashmir, they imagine Kashmir is full of guns. They think if I go to Kashmir, I'll be shot within 3 seconds. Nothing is going to happen. There was such a fear about trekking in Kashmir that people just didn't trek in Kashmir. It's only when India has went ahead, brought it out, explored that place, and we have this lovely trek to the Kashmir Great Lakes, and now this is the second trek that we explored and we have brought it out. Now people have started going to Kashmir and they've discovered, you will not believe this is in a country. It makes you think this is something like Switzerland or something close to where you have been. But these are absolutely human, possible by people like you and us. To go and trek, it doesn't require any magnificent fitness levels or anything like that, but you can explore. And again, as I said, you will not see a single soul around you. What it also means is that you have to keep the place as it is and not, do anything to these places. But this is what exploration, the spirit of exploration, the spirit of adventure that all of us have within us. This is a very childlike thing that we have deep within our hearts. Let me go and explore, let me go and find, let me see what is behind Tambaram, let me find out what is, what is in this area, that we have that. And some of us, we extend it to the mountains, to the hills, to the lakes, to the forests, and we bring out this information, and that's why we have a separate team which just does nothing but exploration, and there are members like you and I who go out and they volunteer and they explore and they go out and they talk. And I want to tell you this, it's not that India has benefits out of it. 95% of the treks that we go for is only for ranking about it. It's only about 5% of those treks where India has actually arranges a trek. We only arrange treks in about 10 treks in our country. Just to take out some confusion from people, and these treks that we talk about and we explore, 95% of them are meant for people to go on their own, and we tell you how to do it. If you ever go to our website, you will find how to go about doing it, how to organize it on your own group of friends. You can just go ahead and do it, you don't need us. People come to us for a different reason. They don't come to us because of the great trails we have brought out. They come to us because they get a lovely company they can trek with. It's nice to trek with 50, 20 people when they trek together, so that's why they come to us. They don't come to us because of this thing. Otherwise, people can trek happily on their own, and that's what we want. Trekking in a country will only grow when people trek. So this is another trek which is there in Kashmir. So bringing what information is and solving these problems of the mountain world and talking about it, exploring about it is what we fundamentally do in our office. So if you ever come to our office, you'll find our trek leaders and trekkers, and they're always talking about this exploration, that exploration. Rarely are they talking about the treks that we conduct. And if you can take us to this thing, that's because these problems of the mountains are so acute. Leaving the mountains in a better condition is one of the things that we would like to do. Now, you must latch on to the word which we call better condition. Now, better condition means when we go on a trek, we don't want to leave the trail as it is. Can we leave the trail in a better condition than how we have found it? Is that possible? Is it possible that if 20-member trekking group can they leave the mountains in a better condition? Can they do something, undo the past, even if it was not created by them? Is that possible in our country? Now this is what we want to do. Now this is a very big task, because in a city, modern city like Bangalore or Chennai or Delhi, the government is at hand. We can approach the corporator, we can approach the municipality, we can even go and take some political connections and things like that, and we get some things done. In the mountains, at 11,000 feet, 12,000 feet, what do? You have no help. You have absolutely no help. You want the government on your side. When you go, we have met the government departments, they themselves are surprised that first of all, such places exist. Oh, aisa hai? Kidhar hai? So these are the very routine questions we go, and then when we say, why didn't you come with us? Nahi, hamare se nahi hoga, utna chalna nahi hoga. So these are the kind of things, mind you, they're from that department. So so leaving the mountains in a better condition is one of the tasks. It's just not about collecting litter. It is about developing an ecosystem and developing a module, developing a system where not only the trekkers but the stakeholders, stakeholders would mean the people who are affected by the trekking route or the trekking trail around them benefit out of what I would say are able to have a say in how these whole things are maintained. So if you take us to the next slide, see some of these things is that you keep collecting these kind of things from the mountains. It's not easy to do this from that altitude that we're talking about. I want to take you through an example in Kashmir, because Kashmir, as you know, is very remote. This is a lake. This is a lake which is at 12,000 feet. Slightly higher than 12,000 feet, this lake in Kashmir, it is called the Gangabal Lake. Now it's a very, very big lake. It's so big that it will take the whole day to go around it. This lake has been absolutely polluted at 12,000 feet, and this is what the reality is. Now how has this come? It's because the local people who come there, take around the lake, some foreigners come there and then they have beer bottle and they leave it there and all this kind of thing. Very rarely that trekkers have done this, because trekkers didn't know this place existed. This has been made a disaster zone long before we stepped into this place. So what do you do? What do you do in such places? Can you ask the government, really, आप आ जाओ उधर, कुछ करो? बोलेगा चलो निकलो यहाँ से. But what you can do is, the power of 20 is bigger than power of 1. So if you can motivate a team of 20 trekkers, come on, let's do something, then you can leave this place in a better condition, and that's what we do. So if you take us to the next slide, this is something that we hand out to all the trekkers. We give them an eco bag. They strap it around their waist and they keep collecting these litter as they find across the trail, and they keep collecting it, putting it into big boris or bastas, and then that is again put on mules, which is totally sponsored by us, and then we send it down, and then once it comes down to the road head, it is again transported to the compactors in the main cities, where it is separated and then recycled on their own. And in fact, the compactors that exist in big cities, most people don't know that there are certain compactors which we can use, which helps to compact the waste and you can segregate them. So this is how so a team of 20 trekkers can do a lot. Just like how CTC carries out a lot of these programs. Now these things also is possible in the mountains, but it's not okay if only one group does it. So group after group, batch after batch, when they go, and slowly over a period of time, the mountains is left in a better condition. And it's just not picking up litter. I want to tell you this. It also means setting up a system. So when we are talking with the panchayat, when we are talking about the community, when we are talking about a lot of people who are associated, the local governing bodies, when they all come together, they are all very interested. That's the only good thing, is that, and then the mountains are left in a better condition. It's a big challenge, but we are seeing a lot of progress, and we have seen considerable changes in the mountains ever since we have stepped in. We have got a lot of flack also. I want to tell you this. If you go on an online forum, people will say India has garbage, litters the most. You will find that. So these are some of the things we have to take in a stride, because when we want to do something larger, when we want to do something larger than ourselves, we are also have to be ready to face flacks from people, which they do. And unfortunately, the social media people are judges and executioners at the same time. So very quickly they form opinion, but it is a work in progress, and it carries on, and we keep doing it even as we speak. These events are happening in the mountains that we do. What it requires is, when we want to solve problems of the mountain world, is basically systems and processes need to be put in place. People think it is intention that needs to be there. Yes, intention is the first objective. But what is more important is, when we want to solve the problems of the mountain world, you need to have a system and process in doing this thing. Now I'm talking to you typically like how a CEO of any organization will speak to you, because I am one. And I'm telling you from that experience that when India Hikes today is the largest, I'm talking to you about this, how an organization grows. Whenever we have put in systems and processes, we have seen growth not only coming to people around us, but even to ourselves. We were not of this size earlier, but now we have become this because of the systems and processes that we have put in. Very, very tiny systems and processes. Systems and processes comes in every aspect. For example, now let me show you an inside view of how India Hikes works. I have been talking about the outside view, about the environment, about solving problems of the mountain world, about info. Now that to Sikkim. Everywhere treks are happening. There are groups of 20-25 people going at the same time. At any given point of time, there would be about 10 or 15 groups across the country. At the same time, keeping in mind that we have to solve the problems of the trekking world to solve. So this is always part of it. On the other hand, you will be someone will be driving, especially people like me, who will be saying, "No, look, what have you done to solve the problems of the mountain that we have?" Now, it's the small systems and processes that we do that gives rise to innovations that you bring into the trekking world. Now, for example, in our country, safety is a very big problem, right? Suppose you go on the snow, what happens if you slip and fall? Even 2-3 years back, even now, there are a lot of snow accidents which people don't talk about. They just go on the snow because they carry normal trekking shoes. They go on the snow, they slip on the snow, and they've gone 50, 70, 100 feet, they bang the head on some rock, badly hurt. People die. Now these things don't, how do you solve this problem? This is a problem, isn't it? You want to explore these wonderful places in the country, at the same time, what about safety? What do you do? Small things. When you think about small innovation that we have brought in the next, this is a very commonly available gadget which is used in other countries, was never used in our country. We have brought it into our country, and now safety in Indian mountain has dropped by 80%. Accidents have dropped in our country just by this one simple innovation that we have brought in. This is called microspikes. Now, if you wear this on your shoes, it grips so well on snow and ice that you don't fall. You are like Spider-Man. Yes, it's true. Now, this is not something which is something out of our. It is not some rocket science or something, that it is not something you sat down and engineered or something like that. These are things which need to be brought into our country, high-tech gadgets, things like that need to be brought into our country, and only then, trekking can become safe. For example, in our country, if you notice, a lot of people go, I'm talking more on the Himalayas because this is where we operate most. There's something called altitude sickness. Right? You have heard of it. People go, they get altitude sickness, people even die. All this can be brought down when the time is there for them to be brought down. A lot of people develop sickness and then they are not in a condition to be brought down. You simply check how much oxygen they have in their blood. It's a very simple thing. So we brought in devices like oximeters, which it's mandatory for any of our trekkers to get themselves tested at around 9,000 feet. Now, after that, again the altitude-related sickness have dropped drastically in our country because of these small things that you bring in this kind of. If you think that there is a problem to be solved, so these small problems that you see, it is a very big problem when you look at it from a life-saving point of view. That someone's life is saved, but if you look at it from a mountain point of view, this is just one of the problems. Now, when I used to trek earlier. People in Sikkim didn't know how to make roti. It will surprise you. People in Sikkim knew how to make pancakes, but they didn't know how to make roti. They didn't know how to make chawal and dal. Now this is what most people, all of us eat. Roti, sabji, dal, chawal is what most of us eat, and we feel they are very balanced and very healthy for our diet. People in Sikkim didn't know because they were always catering to their own culture and foreign trekkers who would come from abroad, and they would ask them to make pancakes. So they were very good at making pancakes, but they couldn't make this thing. Now what is going to happen is, if this guy is going to be stuck in Sikkim, he's not going to get his livelihood increasing. So people over there need to be trained. So once you train these guys into making these kind of a thing, so you have to put in a training process. Again, I'm saying it's a system and processes. That person becomes very employable. Not employable by us, but by employable by himself. So there is this story in Sikkim, one guy, he was working with us, trained him, he opened his own restaurant, and he said that, look, I want to supply stuff to you also. So I said, okay, fine, that's great, you can supply stuff to us. Now he's doing that, now his hotel has become bigger and bigger, and now he's earning very well. So like this is where you start promoting small enterprises. We call them micro enterprises. The moment you start promoting micro enterprises, things grow, the economy of the place changes. The crux of the problem is when you are able to grow the economy of a place, that place flourishes. So even on this Rupkund trek that we are talking about, we sponsored one guy to, kind of gave him a loan of 20,000 rupees. And what he did was he converted his cow shed into a homestay. 20,000 rupees in a city is not a big money, but in the mountains it's a lot of money. So he converted his cow shed into a homestay, and his homestay, he said, I will want to be an exclusive partner with India Hikes. I said, okay, fine, that's okay. So our trekkers started staying in the homestay, and they loved that atmosphere it created. But looking at him, another 4 guys started opening up homestays. So now that village has a lot of homestays for trekkers to go. Now you and I don't have to worry, because you can just go with your friends and stay at the homestay. So these are called micro enterprises. Transport guys from here and there. Of course, now we have the scale to sponsor these kind of things. But the whole motive is, when you bring in systems and processes, a little systems and a little process here and there, it invariably gives rise to growth. Growth of people, growth of organizations, growth of society. Now this connection is what most people find it hard to digest. They find it hard to understand that these connections can be made, that when you bring in these kind of systems and processes into any problem, and if you look at the problem as a problem to be solved, which is the problem of the community, it gives rise to growth of this. One of the reasons, and not one of the reasons, the only reason why we have grown is because every day we sit together and we say, what is the problem to be solved? And in our meetings, this is practically what we discuss is, what is the problem to be solved, and we try to solve it. In fact, one of the ways we try to innovate out of this is what she was telling about. We organized this peak bagging challenge which CTC won, I think 2 years back, is that we wanted to popularize trekking in the south. Trekking in the south is not very popular. Very few people trek. Even in CTC members, I can tell you very few of you trek. Every weekend, not too many. Now if you really want to trek, you need to make this popular, so we thought, why don't we make it popular by organizing a contest around it. So we organized the peak bagging, which is very popular in New Zealand and Australia, but not so much in our country, is that, how many hilltops have you been to? That's called peak bagging. So we organized a contest, it was very successful. All the 3 prizes, 1, 2, 3 was taken by CTC, but there were about 20 or 25 teams participating in it, and very surprisingly we didn't repeat it again. Despite it being so successful now, we have ourselves to blame. We are not a very large organization, so we have shortage of people working with us, so we didn't organize it. Maybe one day we'll again organize it, maybe we'll ask, we'll do it with CTC again together, something like that. But they are very fun events to do, and you all can participate and enjoy these kind of trekking in the thing. Now, the future of trekking in our country. Now, I want to share some figures with you. I told you India has so many people going together and all that. I want to share with you some global figures. The moment I share with you global figures, you'll know where India stands. Okay, so if you can take us through this thing. I want to share some figures with you and see how what you feel about it. Okay, can you show us the next? This is the reality. Over 125,000 people went on the Everest Base Camp trek last year, 2014, official figures. I'm not talking about unofficial figures. In India put together, so many people would not have gone on all treks in the Himalayas. Okay. Over 1 lakh trek the Annapurna circuit, many of you have heard of it. Now if you some of you who have done this trek, you will realize that these treks are very well taken care of. The toilets are good. There's not a single speck of dirt on the trail. Yet that is the number of people which are traveling on the treks. How many of you have heard of Mount Kilimanjaro? Yeah, it's one of the 7 summits. Do you know how many people went last year? If you take us to the slide, more than 40,000 people climbed Mount Kilimanjaro last year, including our team, who climbed a few days back to Mount this thing. 2 to 3 million people trekked on this trek, which is called the Appalachian Trail in US. Recently there was a movie called The Wild. That was part of this trek. That's one part of this trek that was taken. In Norway and Sweden, over 1 million trek every year. Now, you must understand that Norway and Sweden are cold countries. They're not like India where it's very must to trek in the summer and things like that. In cold countries, over 1 million are trekking. In our country, trekking is a very, very small sport. It's a very tiny sport. Even with India hikes all put together, CTC, some Milake is very small. It's still in infancy in our country. Surprisingly, our neighbor Nepal has the highest number of trekkers in the world. Whether